move on to the next topic, as we mentioned, cavalry. I think cavalry has changed the most with the introduction of the new game mode because it's so much more about mobility and so much more about picking up the archers that are left without protection after respawning or having go to back to heal. And they are able to sneak caps, contest caps if they're under attack and nobody else is around. So cavalry gets so much more utility compared to before the new game mode that it has also become one of the most OP units. It doesn't have, that ridiculous thing as elephant spikes or heavy artillery where you need multiple units coordinating really well to just take it down. No, just need a melee unit and cavalry will just need to fuck off, right? But with also the introduction of the XP, cavalry ability to pick their fights also becomes much more valuable. So even though they don't have that ridiculous ability like elephant spikes and heavy artillery, just the insane increase in their utility and what they can do also heavily weights onto their balance. And how would you guys fix that? Where it's not just, you can just nerf cavalry in terms of really their stats, because the stats are okay. They don't outperform any other unit really, to a ridiculous extent. So how do you make a solution to that problem of cavalry being way too strong at the moment?
That one's a hard one to tackle because, cavalry is the counter to range, right? Like, I guess other range counters range too, to an extent. But, if it can't do its job, then there's no place for it. But at the same time, right now, it's just so good at everything. Like, you can win a melee fight. You can take out the enemy artillery. You can take out the enemy ranged. You can take out the other cavalry because your cavalry commander is stronger than theirs is, or that tier is stronger than theirs is. I think the versatility of cavalry is just like, that's kind of what makes it hard to balance because it's so versatile, right? And, as it levels up, it's going to, I think, does cavalry get more armor as it levels up? That means range can't shoot at cavalry.
Everybody gets more armor as they level up. Leveling up gives you armor and damage.
Yeah. So when
I think in case of melee infantry, it also gives you melee attack.
Yeah. So if a range unit starts shooting cavalry, well, that cavalry is going to have higher armor. Let's say worst case scenario with the Roman one, right? They already have shields. They already have higher armor. They already, they get that veterancy to where, like, as an archer, even with melee support to keep the guy off of you, he's not even worth shooting anymore because you're not going to damage him. And, I think just the versatility Cav brings is kind of what makes it feel oppressive. And in the old game mode, when you threw away Cav and you lost it, that was a huge penalty, right? And now that Cav can come back, and I truly like the new game mode better. I warmed up to it. I warmed up to the respawning thing, but the versatility of cavalry is what makes it such a dominating presence on the field, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's obviously the case. But if you take away, that mobility, that versatility, you take away their identity, and cavalry suddenly is no longer cavalry. Yeah. So how do you fix that? I mean, one of the fixes, which I'm very surprised isn't the case, because it used to be the case in wargaming, is that when it comes to capping points, now what counts is the amount of units, not soldiers, on top of that point. So you can literally have 3 units of cavalry, 1 soldier each, and you will cap it as fast as 3 full units of infantry.
Yes, his internet cut out. It'll come back in a few seconds, I believe.
Yeah, I guess my internet likes to stop working randomly. Am I back?
Yes, sir.
Hooray. So as I was saying
that... Yeah, you are back.
Yeah, so 3 units of cavalry, 1 soldier each, will cap a capture point, as quickly as 3 full units of infantry. Which, in the previous version, Wargaming and Steam, It was balanced well. Obviously, cavalry has a much easier time going all the way around and starting capping the base. So in order to prevent ninja caps, they just, okay, well, we base them on the amount of soldiers. Cavalry has only 40 soldiers to start with, right? So it's only 120 soldiers if an entire cavalry player goes onto the point. So it caps almost 3 times slower as if it was an infantry player that has, much harder time of getting to the point. So if an infantry player that has a harder time getting onto a ninja cap situation, he gets rewarded more for it because he did the harder thing, right? So he caps faster. Cavalry caps slower. So just doing that, just changing the cap mechanic itself to be based on amount of soldiers again, instead of amount of units on top of it, that would come, that would help definitely with the cavalry dominance in the game mode by just sniping capture points very quickly. And if you snipe a capture point, that has huge repercussions towards it. It's just a domino effect or butterfly effect, where you suddenly give your team forward a spawn point, you take away a spawn point and healing point from the enemy team, and that transfers into control over an entire new area, and then you can use it to just snowball the game through a single ninja cap of a capture point with 3 units of cavalry. Even at the very beginning of the game, it can completely snowball the game out of control. So giving the enemy team more time to react by slowing the capture speed of cavalry or any unit that is nearly depleted, right? That would come a long way. But do we need to think about how to do it? Maybe some kind of exponential scaling, or rather logarithmic, I think it would be the case. I'm bad at math, excuse me for that. But essentially, if you're, for example, an infantry player, you fought heavily, right? You fought in the middle between A and B point, and you won the fight but barely, so you have like 20 soldiers alive in each unit, right? You fought your hardest and you deserve to capture the enemy point because you've beaten them in a 1v1 fight, let's say, and you've pushed them back, so you deserve to capture the point. But if you're only 20 soldiers in each unit, because that's all you have left alive, you cap very, very slowly suddenly. So maybe not make it a linear progression of capping speed, but logarithmic, right? Which increases very quickly at the beginning and then increases slower and slower. So it's the reverse of exponential growth, if I remember my math lessons correctly.
You could also make it based on class type, right? Like
Or
a
on class
range
type,
unit's not gonna a range unit's not gonna get out of anything scot-free. Let's say he's fighting an equally skilled range player. I mean, either a melee or a range player, right? In either of these scenarios, let's say they win against an equally skilled player, basically. They outplay him, or he makes a mistake or something, and you only have a few units left, right? Either the melee or range player who deserves that point, they fought for it. They can't take it because it's super slow. But I don't know. It's really hard to do it. Like you said, a nerf to one class can affect another class in weird ways. I think the way you work
in terms of capping just capping speed, it wouldn't have that effect really.
Well, it depends on how deep you are in their territory. If you're closer to their base, closer to the respawn.
Yeah, I really like your suggestion because one solution to that problem that would be introduced with the linear progression of capping speed is either logarithmic progression or just capping speed based on class. So it still is about how many units you have, right? But 3 cavalry units at the moment cap as fast as 3 infantry units. It doesn't matter if there are 1 soldier or 100 soldiers in that unit, the capping speed is the same. So you could keep that mechanic if you really think that's a good idea, but apply a multiplier based on the class. So if it is a cavalry unit, let's have like 0.5 multiplier on the capping speed. If it is a ranged unit, you can argue maybe ranged units should cap slower than infantry, maybe they should cap faster, because ranged unit cannot contest the points. As soon as someone gets close to them, they need to run away because they cannot hold the point. So maybe make your ranged units capture faster. You can base it on the difficulty of a unit type of getting on top of the point. Or
I think
you-
range
you,
should cap
you
as
can
fast
also
as-
range can cap as fast as infantry, but you can also base it on like what kind of roles do you want
or
to.
faster. Like I don't mind if they cap faster. I just don't think they should be a slower. Like one of the I don't think cav should out cap a range unit or something like that.
Yeah, but, so you can either base it on difficulty, you can base it on just the amount of soldiers with the multiplier, or on the roles that you want. So for example, you say, the range units are the carries, the cavalry provides utility, but what infantry provides, it provides territory control, which is what a lot of new players are just not aware of. That how important taking control of key positions is. And it always was important, right? Like, capturing that cliff, capturing that forest, capturing that long grass, then your range units can use to shoot the enemy range units, while the enemy range units can retreat that fire efficiently, right? So terrain and controlling the terrain was always very important, but now it's even more important because of the capture points that give you very direct benefit towards winning the game itself, because it's all about the points, or capping the base in that case, which is also territory control. So we can emphasize it even harder by making infantry the best cappers, which they would automatically be if you just base it on numbers. But yeah, it's all the different ways you can balance that, just the capping speed. So let's say capping speed should be changed. As it is right now, it is bad, and you have all those different variants of difficulty, role that you want the units to fulfill, just based on soldiers, or based on logarithmic progression based on soldiers. You have all those solutions, just pick one of them and change it, make it better. But what about cavalry picking off range units for free between respawns, or just going back to heal? There's a huge issue. And how do you address that? How do you maybe incentivize the melee players to defend archers? I mean, the best incentive is just winning the game, right? If you win the game, you get a lot of rewards, but a lot of melee players, or just noob players, will not see the correlation between, if I defended this range player from being picked up for free by the enemy cavalry, that increases my chances to win, and if I win, I get more rewards, which is good for me. They will very often see, range player, a fucking noob, let him die. I'm gonna go forward and gonna press my vengeance. Right? That's what they very often think. So you need to, try to educate players. Either educate them, which is very often just impossible because they will not care. Or how they will care, maybe overemphasize that importance of protecting and fighting as a team by providing some very direct and very obvious and visible rewards for fighting as a team, which you already have, but they're not very visible. Just saying.
Yeah, maybe like explicit incentives to teach people to behave in a certain way. Some games do like to do that in very subtle, very smart ways. They could implement that. It's going to be it's a difficult choice.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of the thing that balancing the game for noobs or versus balancing the game for good players. But in this case, it wouldn't be balancing the game itself. It would be balancing the rewards that you get out of the battle.
Yes.
So it doesn't upset the balance. It just tries to force the players into, just a better, smarter playstyle.
Like what they can do, melee infantry, as long as their friendly ranged is in a certain proximity behind them, they get support points. Boom.
Yeah, I mean, they already do get, just if you're protected by your units from a flank, from the back, you get that proximity bonus, and you get like bonus to morale. And then if your morale is more than 100%, you also get buffs to your actual melee capabilities. It already is in the game. You also get points for just being around when your teammates deal damage. But there's those small things that most players just are not aware of. So they'll not try to, maximize the rewards that they would get, because that doesn't upset the balance. I mean, the proximity thingy that gives you confidence kind of does, but it's still a good thing, good balance point.
Yeah.
But yeah, people
Well,
just need to
I
just
think
be
Ark's
more
idea
aware
was
of it.
really good.
Which
Like
is,
I think Ark's idea was really good, right? Give them some support points, because I think a lot of newer players, right?
they know they're already giving them support points. Not for just being close to them, but when they deal damage. So just standing next to a ranged player when the ranged player doesn't deal damage doesn't give you points. Which I guess if you start introducing that,
They might follow more,
yeah.
you know. But I think one
I'm
of the
just gonna
things
score
is,
this ranged player and get some points for free without risking my unit dying. I'm gonna go for
right?
it.
I mean, you don't have to give them a ton of points, right, to where they're going to be the top on the leaderboard or anything.
Yeah, just for
But, like-
escorting archers. Yeah, that would be kind of also ridiculous. But yeah,
Right.
that is a really good
But-
idea. I like it.
But give them enough so that they're like, hey, I'm actually, I'm not losing points because I'm not in melee right now, right? Like,
Yeah.
like let's say you're a Germanicus player. Basically, at any moment when you're not, just with vengeance going, you're like, me points on the leaderboard. Where are they going? Unless you're sitting there blocking ranged. But like, I think like
That's another meme.
balance it. Obviously, maybe make it a slow ticking up number. Maybe give it bonuses if like cavalry enters a certain ring around these archers. Make it tick up more then, or something. I don't know. You can do it a bunch of different ways.
I mean, you can do it in terms of points, but so that's the design side of things. In this case, implementation is going to be just as important as the design. So what you do for implementation is you make sounds, you make prompts. You'll be like, your units will be like, "We are defended," like, and that way people will be like, okay, yep, I'm getting confident. Like, now I can see I'm getting those buffs. Like, make that confidence buff flash a little bit. Make it part of the tutorial. Things like that will guide people and condition them towards getting that.
All you get right now is like a white arc from the flank you're getting protected from, and well, a square above your unit card showing up that you have a certain buff. Like, that's where all the buff and debuffs go. So yeah, if you make it more visible, yeah, it would maybe incentivize players more, but then maybe it would be a little bit too obstructing and distracting. That can also go both ways. So
I'm completely fine with
so
that.
far the UI is pretty good. Also, it is pretty customizable, right? So you can always go to options and disable it if it pisses you off.
Yeah.
I think voice cues would be cool, like Ark
Yes.
said, where like the range players, like archers, will say something and the melee player can hear his archers say something in the back, right?
Or just
And be like-
protecting our ranged units.
Or be like, "Thank you for supporting us," or something, right? Like,
There you
like
go.
little things,
Yeah.
Or like, how there's emotes on like League of Legends where you press T or whatever the button is and you drag it, and it, like, I'm not saying put an emote system in, I'm just saying maybe have like a thanks for support button, or like thanks for, like, so the player can actually, like, because we play in groups, right? We constantly get positive reinforcement for that, right? My range player, if I follow his ass around, fucking loves me. At the end of the game, even though he's top frag, he'll be like, "That guy protected me," and I'll be like, "Well, I feel like I did something nice. Thanks. I'm appreciated."
Yeah. Hey, the archer
Like-
player that I protected became MVP. I feel good about it.
Exactly. Right.
But then other players are like, "See, I protected you and all got all the points." Fuck you. I'm not protecting you anymore. I won the points next battle. Screw you.
See, studies.
Hi, Jojo.
Studies always show. Studies always show positive reinforcement is always more effective in changing behavior than negative reinforcement. Now, of course, it depends on people and everything, but when in a neutral ground, like in a video game, that seems to be the case. So these kinds of things, combined with proper prompts, will push people in the way that you want them to behave, and we want them to behave in a way that will maximize their chances of winning.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Going back a little bit to the cavalry itself and how it is balanced, right? So what I want to touch upon is actually also the interactions with ranged units, but how cavalry is really bad at cutting down ranged units. Once it charges obviously obliterate archers, but they don't kill them. They deal like 80% of their HP, but they don't kill models. And then you need to stay in melee and finish them off in melee. But you deal so little damage in melee, unless you're melee barbarian cavalry. Then you get them down pretty fast. But other than that, you're killing the archers very, very slowly, which is an issue and shouldn't be the case. If archers get fucking charged, they should be dead most of the cases, right? Unless they have immediate reinforcements helping them out. But very often,
or they get half the charge block.
Yeah, you charge the unit, right? You charged the enemy archers. You dealt 80% of their HP damage. Hooray, great, but it didn't kill any models. And then you try to stick around to actually capitalize on the damage you delivered, right? To start killing off the models. So you stick around and stick around and stick around. Half minute has passed. You maybe killed 10 out of 60. Come on, kill them fast. Oh no, an enemy reinforcements arrived. Okay, I have to go. And I killed 15 archers. Even though I spent 1 minute with them trying to kill them as cavalry. Which is also weird because they had a perfect solution for that on Steam. And then they just removed it. And the issue came back. And they never thought about returning the solution that they had, which is really weird and a huge step back. So please, CA, just re-implement the solution, the perfect solution you already had. Just give cavalry units bonus versus archers, or ranged units. Simple as that. Just like, you should implement bonus versus large on other units versus elephants. So for example, spears, well, you kind of did that now, but still it's not consistent. Yeah, spears have bonus versus cavalry. That still exists. Why did you remove cavalry bonus versus ranged units? Or maybe, as we talked about elephants, maybe you implement a specific bonus for ranged against elephants.
Maybe make a commander that is good at making ranged units survive charges more, but make him way weaker at actual range combat. There's some.
That's something to think about.
Oh yeah, man.
No, not really a fan of that solution, but I guess you could do that once you run out of other ideas.
You
already have the opposite of just cavalry commander that is really good at cutting them down, which is either Sulla with Whip or Arminius with Frenzy. Because you don't really want to use Defiance as Vercingetorix against archers, kind of pointless.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you can do it as Sulla, and you don't really get any ranged.
Also, for anybody in CA listening, Mistro is an archer player, so the fact that he's saying that cavalry should kill archers in one charge should mean something.
Well, not one charge, just, as it is right now, it's okay, but I'd also change the charge mechanic, but we'll get into later. But yeah, overall, cavalry is not strong enough against archers, somehow, right? And yes, I am that archer player, and you're saying, oh, Mistro is biased towards archers because he plays archers all the time. Well, surprise, surprise, I kind of stopped playing archers and switched to cavalry because archers are in an absolute shit spot right now. And, the game isn't fun when 90% of the time you're dead or cannot do anything. So, well, I just switched to cavalry to have fun. Because of all the mobility, utility you can do, and, the mind games and outmaneuvering the opponents, which I'm really good at. But as archers, I can't really do. So I can't use that part of my skill set that well. But as cavalry, I can. So it's fun.